continuing our series on P1A visa drafting. Right now, we're going to get into the meat of the petition, which is well, it should be the meat, but sometimes it's the other stuff, is the eligibility requirements of P1A. So for someone to be eligible under P1A, there is 7 categories of eligibility they look at, to which the athlete is responsible for proving more likely than not 2 of those 7 categories. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce them now in this video, but then we'll kind of do what we'll do is like some of them I'll go and break down further when they require it. So one is a receipt of a significant honor and award in the sport. Sometimes this can be difficult or it can be easy because it's kind of subjective, right? What is a significant? And one thing to know is this is national or international award. So you can win a national championship, but this national championship has to show that you are recognized as a leading person in more than one country, right? So while the award can be national, the coverage in the media and your expert letters and stuff should show that it made you internationally recognized in more than one country. Now, no, it doesn't ask you to be recognized all over the world. It just says that you are internationally recognized in more than one country, which is something that more immigration lawyers should beat over their head, and also like focus on like national championships are fine as long as it makes you internationally recognized in more than one country. It doesn't have to be an international award, which is something that we'll get into. So it can be easy if you want a gold medal, but it could also be high placements in world championships. So if you got 5th in the Olympics, that still could be a significant award under the regulations. The next one is a written statements from experts, and we kind of put that into media coverage. So articles and publications in themselves are not part of the requirements for P1A. That's one of the requirements for O1A. But in those media reports, you'll have experts that are talking about the accomplishments of the athlete. So those and letters from experts go into the same thing. And it's honestly better to have it in media outlets that are already on the internet, because it helps bring credibility, as opposed to if you're introducing a whole bunch of expert letters, they can kind of just ignore those when they want to, which is something they do all the time. Next is a consultation letter from the governing body of the sport, which is something that we've already covered in depth to see how that can be helpful, and sometimes how that can be hard to get because the governing body might not exist, or it does exist and they're very stringent with the language that they use, or they're just not going to say something helpful for your athlete, right? The next one is participation with the national team. In some sports and tournaments, this is very clear. If you competed in the Olympics or the equivalent of the Olympics in a non-Olympic year for the World Championships, then obviously you competed with the national team. But there's other tournaments, as Commonwealth tournaments, or like, international tournaments in motorsports where they only bring, 5 teams or whatever. That's something where it gets a little bit more murky to show that you actually did. And then also sometimes you'll be on the national team, but maybe it's only for like one thing, and they'll say your contribution to the national team wasn't significant enough to make you recognized in more than one country. The other things that we'll get into that are pretty objective is previous experience with the NCAA, National Collegiate Athletic Association. That's the top level of collegiate sports in the United States. So if you competed for Ohio State in track, and then you also swam for the Mexican junior national team, then you are eligible for P1A right there, because you have national team experience, and then you also have previous experience in the National Collegiate Athletic Association. So we like when athletes are getting ready to graduate from college because they have one eligibility requirement right there. We can roll them in from their F1 to a P1 or an O1. Usually, like, the P1, depending on the sport, because some sports they just don't have any competitions that would support a P1. So we switch them to O1 when we can. And then the other category that's very objective is, do you have previous experience with major league sports? So the P1 petitions, if you're in the NBA or the NFL or MLB, are pretty straightforward, especially if it's your second year, your second visa. You just say, well, I've already competed in major league sports and you're good to go. And so those are the categories right there: receipt of significant honor, reputable outlets and experts, consultation letter, participation with the national team, previous experience in the National Collegiate Athletic Association, previous experience with major league sports, and a consultation letter from the governing body of the sport, if I didn't say that one already. And so of these, there'll be a couple that I'm going to get into in more detail by themselves, which would be significant honor. We're going to look at international rankings, and we're going to look at probably letters, and we'll look at national team participation a little bit more closely and provide some examples of when those can be kind of dicey and you have to argue those very carefully. All right, so I look forward to expanding on those with you very soon in the next videos.